Thank you for joining us for the next Vintage Legends. My name is Graham and I'm with the Vintage Guitar Players group on Facebook. You can find us by going to facebook.com/groups/The Vintage Place. And today, obviously remember to subscribe below as well. So today I'm here with Paul Brett, and Paul not only has an impressive career, a history of working as a session musician with other collaborations as well, but he's also a vintage signature artist. So Paul, thank you very, very much for joining us here this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Greatly appreciated. So just to get things rolling, if you don't mind, in your own words, can you tell us a bit more about your own music to start with?
Well, currently I'm a 12. Most of my music is composed on 12-string guitar and released like that on CDs.
Yeah.
But over the last 200 years, you know, I've played a lot of different styles, with a lot of different bands. But you know, just currently, it's mainly just 12-string guitar.
Yeah, and obviously, in terms of you know, the kind of other music you play, what kind of genres have you been also, you know, kind of involved in for collaborations and such? You know, bit of everything. Yeah,
pop music, rock music, mainly all styles, acoustic stuff, blues. Mainly over the years, you know, I played since I started professionally. My first professional job was to take over from Jimmy Page in Neil Christian and the Crusaders, which is back in the early 60s. And then I went on from there, and I played with a lot of different bands: Crazy World of Arthur Brown, Straubs, Elmer Gantry's Velvet, Opera. Oh, the brain's gone on them. But
just a few.
Just a few. Loads of sessions for people. I mean, for a very wide variety of people, you know, including people like Max Bygraves.
I didn't know, is that status quo here?
I played on one of his albums. Yes, the Quo, I toured with the Quo. Barclay James Harvest. You know, the list is sort of endless if I go back through it. But and I formed, I was with a band called Fire, which it was run by Dave Lambert, who's with the Straubs now. And we did one album called The Magic Shoemaker, which I think is sort of selling now for upwards of £1,000 if you can get your hands on one. And yeah, well, yeah. I just think it's one of those things where from the Fire I met Bob Voice and Dick Dufal, who were the bass player and drummer, and we formed Paul Brett Sage, which is my own band in the way back. And then we did 3 albums, I think, and then I went solo with the fiddle player Mick Piggott. We went out as a duo with Status Quo, and then I went solo after that. And you know, I've been that way ever since. I teamed up with Johnny Joyce, the British 12-string guitar legend, who sadly died in 2004. But he was the one who got me into 12-string in the first place. And a little bit of upfront news. Hang on, the bloody cat's just come in, and he's just about to meow.
That's all right. It's nice to have some guests on as well.
Not this one. Once he starts, that's it. We've got a bit of news later on in the year where hopefully Vintage going to I've designed a 12-string tribute to Johnny Joyce. It's a new model which will come out 12 and 6 later on in the year.
Amazing.
So that's a bit of upfront news for you.
Amazing.
And Johnny was great. You know, I mean, he was the only one that in the early days that was over here playing sort of fingerstyle 12-string blues. And he's a bit of a legend to a lot of people. Him and I worked for Aria Guitars, and we both designed for Aria in the 70s. And John was a major quality control person. He was also one of the best sort of repairers. And we did a duo for quite a while, but mainly folk and blues and jazz, bit of jazz. We did Rubek's Take 5 and Summertime. And then a lot of Blind Willie McTell, Lead Belly stuff, with 6 and 12-string guitars. You know, John was playing the 12 and I was playing 6-string lead, and we were both splitting the singing. So we did that for quite a while. We toured Europe and toured the UK for quite a bit. And then stage thing split up. I went solo and I put out the first 12-string guitar suite in the mid-70s called Earthbirth, which was a completely solo 12-string guitar, which did very, very well. I was released in 24 territories worldwide. And I got a 4-album deal with RCA because of it. And that went on for a number of years. And then the second album was we expanded the lineup, and I met up with Tom Newman, who produced Tubular Bells for Oldfield. And he produced Interlife for me. We did it at Capitol Radio, which was the first commercial album done there. And that was good. It was a big band lineup. I had the Stones brass section on it. Rod Coons, who was the drummer of the Straws at the time, and Lyle Harper, who's a really, really good bass player. Good musicians on it, Derek Austin. And then it went on from there. We did another couple of albums, and then I did. My manager says to me, "Oh, you need a hit." I said, "Well, I'm not interested in that. I've had them before with the bands, and they sort of peter out when the band peters out."
Yeah.
And then he said, "No, you need a hit." He said, "KTEL want to do an album with you, 16 golden greats for you and the London Symphony Orchestra." So I thought, oh shit, yeah, 16, because up till then I've been doing all my own original material.
Yeah.
And I got together with the guys from KTEL and the producers, and Richard Harvey, the arranger, who's a brilliant arranger and musician. And we actually did 16 tracks, and it was called Romantic Guitar, and it actually went quite high up in the charts for quite a few weeks, which surprised me no end. But it wasn't the sort of...
That's not the attitude at all.
Well, I was doing all right up until then, and then they started coming out with all this nonsense about, oh, you want to tour now with the Rose of Romance Orchestra. We can form one, and it just didn't appeal to me. It was nice, but I just wanted to go back to doing what I was doing. So, I went back with Johnny, and we went back on the road, and I didn't really, sort of carry that theme on from, on the romantic guitar side, and I moved on to other things. But the 12-string thing really appealed to me. And I wanted to establish that, because I was really interested in learning to play it in my style. I mean, John was a blues player, and I learned a lot of finger picking off of John, because it's an entirely different technique, 12-string. You've got to pluck 2 strings as one, which is the hardest thing.
It's a skill I don't possess.
Well, the 6-string is all left-hand speed, really, when you're playing lead stuff. And you revert it 12-string. It's a lot of right-hand technique more so. So I developed it anyway. We put Earthbirth out, and it was really good. And then it led to another few albums after that. And then they were all really jazz funk, stuff like that. I followed the same theme. Bit of classical and acoustic stuff in there. And in the subsequent albums, which is Interlife, Eclipse, and the last one was Guitar Trek. Unfortunately, that was a really good album, Guitar Trek, but it came out at the same time as KTEL put Romantic Guitar out, so all the kind of attention went to Romantic Guitar, because the business heads were sort of thinking, the album,
Right, okay.
But musically, it was fine, as an album. Everybody did a great job on it. It took me a day to play it all.
It's not bad going.
One string melodies. But, the actual overall thing was it came out really well. And I'm probably one of the only British guitar players. There's not many of us that have actually had chart albums, solo players, acoustic players. There's not many of us. So I suppose, if that's anything to kind of put on the CV, that...
it's definitely
quite well.
It's definitely a accomplishment in itself.
we moved on from there, you know. And then after that, we went. I met my partner Michelle Breeze, who just finished starring in Evita for Lloyd Webber, and we formed a little unit, and we moved really over to the light entertainment side then, and we formed like big shows going out all over the world, performing, you know, all sorts. So it's been interesting so far.
No, I have. Listen, it's definitely an achievement for certain. One thing I did ask Gordon that I would quite like to ask yourself, putting you in the spot somewhat, but how do you find best to keep things fresh when you're writing new material? Do you have any tips?
It comes in waves, really. I sort of get inspired by different combinations of guitar things.
Okay.
I mean, this little beast here that I designed for vintage, you know, the little 12-string Viator.
Yeah.
That's my like fave instrument. I've just it inspired me to. I've just finished a 15-track album, which I've done with string quartet and this little beast, and it's absolutely. I'm so thrilled with it. It's really, really good. And it's taking the 12-string into a different area.
Yeah.
And I've also re-recorded Earthbirth with the string quartet, but using the Statesboro 12-string.
Yeah.
It sort of follows on from the theme, and I've added the quartet and re-recorded it. So that's the inspiration I get. It's just mainly these sort of little, you know, these little sounds that tick me off. You know, they come in waves.
Sometimes it's just this little earworm that makes you go, there's an idea for something in it. I get that. Well,
yeah, I get it from this, you know.
Yeah, the sound of that's amazing. Hopefully hear more of that soon. But with obviously with your journey with vintage, how did you discover them in the first place?
I didn't. Dennis Drum rang me.
Okay.
2010, I think, and he asked me to go up.
Okay.
To Garstang, you know, and we went up there. And he asked me if I'd design a 12-string for him. Johnny and I had a link with Dennis because both Johnny and Dennis worked for Rossetti's.
Oh, okay.
Although in the past I never met Dennis. But obviously, you know, we had a link through Johnny, historical link. And he asked me, I went up there and he asked me if I'd design a 12-string, and we muted into a 6-string as well. That was the first things I did for vintage, and from then I've you know, I've been there since 2010 now. So I think there's 19 models out.
I was going to say,
a few out there.
I had a count today actually, before we kind of got together to just see exactly how many are out there, and that was my count as well, 19 different models.
Yeah.
So just I think they have something like about 43 different acoustics. So you've got almost half of them.
Well,
that's not bad going.
They're selling out all over the world. That's the good thing, is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I look on YouTube and there's guys in Brazil and Ecuador, all sorts of Italy, Germany, all sorts of people playing my little guitars, you know. Yeah, and of course, vintage is brilliant. They get the price right.
Yeah.
That's the key, you know, the quality and the price.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and again, something I've said before, time and time again, and obviously on the group as well. It's having tried many different guitars over the years from many different manufacturers and many different price points. It's really quite something to be able to pick up something and go, really, is that all this costs? You know, it's quite something. Well,
the beauty about vintage is that when I worked for Aria.
Yeah.
When I designed for Aria, I was working for Aria. He'd send the stuff off to the Japanese factories, and they'd then mess about with it.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? It wouldn't actually come back
quite how you designed. Right,
exactly.
Okay.
But the thing is with vintage stuff is the factory that they use. You know, they just work to your designs, and it comes back, and immediately you play it. I've never had to get back to them and say, look, no, this is wrong, this doesn't sound right, this is not filled right. It's always been right all the time.
Yeah, I imagine that can make such a difference, if nothing else, to your sanity.
Well, you wait for 6 months for from design to actually getting the prototype.
Yeah.
And if you get a prototype and you have to go back and say, no, this is not right. But never had to do that with any of the vintage models.
Yeah, well, it's definitely something in it, and I think, and obviously I know that you've got the Statesboro, you've got the Viator, and the Gemini, the Whiskey Sour ones. You've got the obviously
the Raven,
Raven as well. Yet the one
and the
thing
6 and 12 strings.
with the Raven, tell us a bit more about the background for that, because it's a fascinating looking guitar. So how did you?
Yeah, it's I've always been, when I was 10, I used to bunk into Hammersmith Odeon and watch the Edgar Allan Poe films, when
Nice.
X-rated. I used to bunk in the back and watch Vincent Price, do his bit, Fall of the House of Usher and all the
Yeah.
other stuff. And the Raven, of course. I've always been into Poe, and he's a bit of he is the Gothic sort of superstar, isn't he? And his poems were very, very they were inspirational, I suppose, for the actual films. And I got hold of all the lyrics for that, and I wanted to do it for a long time, to put out a sort of an album of his poems.
Yeah.
Put the music to it, and the opportunity came up, and I designed the Raven guitar. If you put your finger down the middle of a Raven, the sound hole, you get 2 Raven heads.
Yeah, symmetry. Yeah.
And it really is I love it. It's a stunning guitar. It works really, really well for.
Yeah, it's just Gothic. It's such the sound obviously is amazing anyway, but it's just such an eye catcher, when you see that as well.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I did actually see the Edgar Allan Poe statue in Boston. Random trivia for you as well. visited that while I was across in the States a few years ago. See, in terms of the models you've got just now, I mean, do you have any modifications you've done yourself after production to any of your own vintage guitars, or have it been pretty much on point for you?
No, none at all. It's pretty much every time I get them, they're perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, for individual players, if they get them, they might want to do something with the action to suit their style, or change the strings or whatever. But for me, when I've got the prototype models, I've never had to go back and say, change this, change that, because they've done what I wanted them to do, for my original design. So no problem at all with the production.
Excellent. That's pretty amazing. And I suppose, obviously, you mentioned there's going to be a 6 and a 12 string variant coming out down the line, obviously as a tribute to John. Out of interest, would there be anything else you would like to see from vintage down the line as well, over and above that?
I'm not. No, we. If I have an idea, I'd put it up to Paul Smith and Dennis, and we kick it about a bit. And as I say, with the new 6 and 12 that's been designed for tribute to John Joyce, Dennis really wanted to do it anyway, because he knew he worked with John in the past, and we both had history with him, and also he's sort of like an unsung hero in that genre of. I mean, John Remborn used to call him Dead Thumb, because he just used to. He had this claw pick that was always sort of, almost looked like his hand wasn't moving. But John used to call him Dead Thumb. And of course, we both had history. Remborn played with John for quite a while. And in the early days, John played with a lot of the blues stars that came over here from America. And he was on the same bill as them. But he was fanatical about Lead Belly and Blind Willie McTell, which is how really I got into it. And I'm really pleased to be able to put something out as a tribute to him, because it keeps his name alive. I mean, just before he died, he said to me, whatever you do, see if you can keep the name going, and I've sort of been true to that, because, without his sort of, when I first heard him, he was playing in a pub in Twickenham with a group called the Levee Breakers. And there was 3 of them, including Bob Dylan was after she initially married John Martin, the girl in there, Beverly Martin. She's a solo artist in her own right, but I mean, I know Dylan was sniffing round, you know. But she married John Martin. And when I heard him, and I heard John play solo Statesboro Blues, there was about 100 people in there. No PAs in them days in the folk clubs. And it was just such a massive sound.
Yeah.
You know, that because having used to, up till then, using stacks and electric guitars, and you don't feel lonely.
Yeah.
But when you're on that stage with no PA playing an acoustic guitar,
it's a different feeling.
and the audience are like 2 feet away from me, you know, sitting there watching.
Yeah.
And I heard John do Statesboro Blues, and I got hooked ever since, you know, on the actual the completeness of the performance, you know. That was it, really. To me, it was like a big travelling piano, you know, that he was playing there. In those days, he played a guild, and he was just hammering it out. And like, you know, I was right at the back, and there was no way you couldn't hear it. You know, I mean, these days it's all plug in and this, that, and the other. But you have to remember, in those days, you know, we didn't have pickups on acoustic guitars. You know, you used to get more feedback than anything when you try to turn them up a bit, you know. But they've come a long way since then. But it was great, and that's it really. How I, if I get an idea for something, I run it up by the guys up there, by Paul and Dennis, and you know, if they like it, we'll go with it. And that's the way it happens.
Well, I'm glad they have, obviously, for this one, because it sounds like it's, you know, a well-deserved tribute, and I think it's good for, obviously, John to get the kind of recognition he deserves as well. And like you say, to kind of keep the name alive and such, you know, it's a nice thing to do, you know.
And, I'm pleased with it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that, as you can imagine as well, being a bit of a geek here with all things vintage. In terms of your own, you know, your own kind of music, what have you got any kind of gigging and recording lined up just now, or?
I've just finished, as I said, during this lockdown period. My mate is an American. Well, I don't know if he'd say he's American, but he comes from Bermuda. But he lives on a boat in the harbour. He's got one of these trimarans. He sails back and forwards. He's great. I did a video on his boat the other week, and he calls it. We were talking about, you know, lockdown. He calls it house arrest.
Not far off.
So yeah, while that was going on, I re-recorded the Earthbird thing with the quartet and the 15-track thing on this little piece with the quartet, and I've just finished the final mixes now, and just decided what to do. But I had an approach from John Reed at Cherry Red Records about 18 months ago, and he signed up all my catalogue. You know, and they put out a 4-CD anthology on me last summer, which I was really pleased with, because it sort of documented a lot of the styles I'd done right from the mid '60s with some of my early bands, and then right up till now. So it went through, you know, some tracks with John, tracks with Arthur Brown on there, some unreleased tracks from a lot of different things, and right the way through to what I've been doing now. So I was really pleased with that. And then I put Tom Newman on, so I think Tom's got some catalogue stuff up there. You should have interviewed Tom. He bought a Raven. He bought 2 actually. One for his
son as well.
One for his son.
Yeah, I was hearing that from Paul. That's hopefully in the pipeline as well. Fingers crossed. Tom, if
you're
I'm listening,
sure it'll be great. You know, just mind the F word, Tom.
That's okay. I'll try and find some way to edit the beep out, or not. That's fine.
You won't have to.
That's fine. And I very genuinely have to hold these things back myself. I've got to be very conscious of that myself, so that's okay. Peas in the pod with the things. Peas in the pod, as you say.
Yeah, it's easy to do that.
Uh, have you any kind of live dates or anything you think, or is that going to be on hold for a little bit, or what do you think?
Last couple of years, we haven't been able to do anything.
Yeah,
I run for the last, or the previous 8 years, the Clean Guitar Festival, which we've had just about every name guitar player down, and but we haven't been able to do it obviously for the last couple
yeah,
of years because Wales, unlike England, have had sort of different laws. I mean, I think they've only just been relaxed
yeah,
as far as getting into venues are concerned last week. But we've had different laws all the way through this.
yeah. It makes the logistics a
Pandemic.
bit more of a
Well, yeah,
yeah,
it makes it very difficult because where I live, we have a lot of English visitors. So, you know, there's been a bit of conflict in terms of, they come down with all the restrictions lifted in England and they're still on in Wales. So, like masks in shops in a lockdown ago, people were walking in and people were getting really upset that, they weren't wearing masks. It's been a very confusing issue across the four nations, really.
Yeah.
Really, to my point of view, there should have been one bloody law right the way through, for everybody. You either wear them or you don't, or, you can get in the theatres with a pass. And I know I didn't put in for one of these loans that have gone missing now from the government.
Should have done with myself. I missed the bus on that.
Yeah, all their mates now on the Cayman Islands are banking.
I think I missed the boat on that one, unfortunately, as well. Well, listen, hopefully, if nothing else, like as things kind of start to return to somewhat of normality, hopefully we'll be able to see a return of that at some point.
Well, we're gonna do the festival again later on in the year if nothing changes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at rebooking that, but as the restrictions here have only just come off, as far as COVID passports and all this stuff, I'm going to give it another. We've got a thing. Actually, we got at the ACC in Liverpool. There's the Great British Guitar Show, April the 2nd and 3rd, of which Vintage have got they've got a stand there, and I'm going to go up and be on the stand and just to be available to demonstrate or whatever. So we're going to see how that goes because, it's one thing opening the theatres again and the venues, and it's another thing actually getting people to come through the door.
Yes. Yeah.
That which is, from what I'm getting back from people, there is a kind of initial problem with that, So we're going to see what the Liverpool show goes like. Then I'll formulate the new Clean Guitar Festival for the end of September, which will be actually, instead of being the 12th year, it will be the 9th if you take away the 2 weeks.
So it's been born in a leap year.
Well, it's you can't make those sort of plans. And now who knows with this bloody Russian thing in Ukraine, who knows whether even anybody's going to be able to afford a litre of petrol.
Well, fingers from across the sense.
Strapping it on our electric scooters,
That's fine. We're just cycled into Wales, it's fine.
Well, we've got plenty of sheep around here. We can always put the reins on them.
Galloping in. We'll see how that works. Well, one thing I would ask, where would you say is the best place for us to find your music?
It's all my stuff now is with Cherry Red.
Excellent, so Cherry Red.
You can get on. Yeah, he's got most of it. These 2 new ones I've done are not scheduled yet, but he's got Cherry Red. We've even put Gordon and I did an album on the Raven. Which wasn't released on CD. It was there was CDs about, but they went to the vintage dealers all over the world. But Cherry Red did put it out, so there is an album with Gordon Giltrap and me on using the Raven, which demonstrates, obviously all Gordon's different styles and mine as well. So that went out, but mostly now through Cherry Red, and everything else that's available is on www.paulbrettguitarist.co.uk, which is a lot of little videos of different guitars.
Yeah.
Me playing a lot of the vintage guitars, and there's a few bits and pieces for sale. Like I did a few years ago, I did to much acclaim actually, which surprised me. I did the Isaac Walton Complete Angler. Yeah, all the poems out of that I put to music.
Okay.
This is before I joined Vintage, but I put all that out there. That's available on the site with a tab book, and there's a tab book on there for a 12-string pieces as well. So, there's bits and pieces on there, and quite a general thing. But so it's www.paulbrettguitarist.co.uk.
Excellent. And all the usual social media outlets as well. Awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah, Facebook, and also the vintage and the vintage site and JHS sites as well. Yeah. And so there's enough out there, and also YouTube. I think I've got something like 98 videos on there, maybe more, of me demonstrating proper vintage, vintage and antiques, all the different Gibsons, whatever. Stellars, there's a lot of Stellars on there, because I had quite a big guitar collection of Oscar Schmidt Stellars, which are their legendary blues guitars from the 20s and 30s. They're all on there. You can go and hear what they sound like, see if you feel that the traditional sounds on there. You can actually hear them rather than just read about them. Yeah. And obviously, if you're buying or you want to buy a Stella, you can go on there and hear what they sound like. But they're few and far between now. They seem to have either they seem to have rocketed up in the past few years, and they are exceptionally good. But it's a similar theory or similarity to what vintage are doing now when you think of the price of the Statesboro range, for example. And back then, I mean, I think they've gone up a tenner or so since this lockdown because the shipping's costing a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think you go back to what they were charging, something like between $15 and $25 for a Stella in the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
And they were made out of birch. But if you go on to now and compare the jump in prices, vintage are pretty much in the same price for the Statesboro range.
Yeah.
Comparison to there and now. And the principle's the same. Putting guitars in the hands of the working man who can afford them. Because there's a lot of pros actually started, there's a lot of pros already playing my stuff. But I mean, the vintage seems to be picking up a hell of a lot of momentum worldwide with the Statesboro range. So you go on YouTube and you see all these guys from South America and all over the place, America. You're strumming, or they're either strumming or picking, and they've all got Statesboro, so it's great.
Yeah.
It's long way it happened.
No, exactly. It's testament to the fact that obviously they're putting out quality instruments, and the fact that obviously your hand in helping in the kind of design of these things has been
and I mean
success.
I love it. They're great to work with. All the guys up there, get a really good relationship with them, and they're all into what we're putting out. And it's been a pleasure. It's been like 11, 12 years now since I've been there, so it's really, really good. And they're nice people. There's no nutters up there, or anything like that. Unless you're not, I'm aware of.
That helps. But no, like I said, it's I suppose that's the thing, is you kind of hit the kind of nail on the head with it's just putting good quality guitars, good quality hardware at a reasonable price into the hand of working musicians. That's quite a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I was still playing electric, I'd probably play some of theirs, but because I don't have a band these days. I don't have anything else like that, so it's mainly the acoustics that I deal. But I have played some of the electrics, when I've been up on their exhibitions, and they're excellent.
Yeah. You just have far too much self-control then.
Well, you need to, you don't need to keep turning around to the drummer and telling him.
You just have far too much self-control not buying them. Unfortunately, I don't.
No.
Oh, dear.
Well, and I don't think I ever have either. I mean, over the years, I don't think Tom and I haven't mellowed
It's not a bad thing.
in that respect. we're still the same as we were. They say a leopard don't change its spots. I don't know. I've changed in a lot of ways, but musically, I've definitely changed. But then I've enjoyed the journey. And so far it's been absolutely fantastic. And hopefully this current madness that the world has launched itself into will either get worse or it'll ease. And hopefully, if it eases, then music will get back. And creativity will get back to where it should be, which is sort of creating happiness for people and everything else, that music brings to life.
Yeah. Long may that continue. Yeah. Well, what I would like to say, Paul, listen, thank you so much for joining us today and for showing us with the guitar and telling us obviously about the background and such, because it's really interesting stuff to find out. And thank you everyone obviously for joining us in this as well. Obviously, just a reminder, check out Paul's music, hit subscribe below, and please feel free to join us at the Vintage Guitar Players group on Facebook, and we'll hope to see you guys the next time. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, you got to join that group. You've got to join it. You lot, get out there and click on.
It's an order.
That's an order. And hopefully, I'm hoping to that Tom Newman will do something with you as well. I'd be interested to see that, because he's got a stack of stories. Fantastic.
Fingers crossed.
Great musician and producer as well.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I said his girlfriend Jenny put online some single that he did in the '60s. She said, I was selling for £1,000 on eBay. Somebody's asking for it. And I said, I bet he hasn't got one. She come back and said, no, he hasn't. And it's the same with me with the Tinton Abbey stuff. I mean, the Tinton Abbey single, God knows what that's selling for now. I haven't got one. I've got one Fire album, but I've got a Sex Pistols album, which is signed by everybody, and including young Sid, and it says, and Johnny Rotten's got Johnny Rotten and an arrow down to Sid saying, "Him wanker," on the cover, which is given to me by Malcolm McLaren at the Greyhound in Fulham, their manager. Well, they're old man, dead now, Malcolm, but it was lovely. It's a lovely cover when you see the arrow with that on it. You just think sort of brings it out.
Term of endearment.
Yeah, collectible history in music. Anyway, it's been great. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, Paul.